Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion, a podcast focused on self-care, financial independence, communication, and positive relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Mo Anderson. Each episode, I interview thought leaders from all over the world who share tips and tools to boost your personal growth. My guest today is Dre Baldwin, a 9-year pro athlete turned full-time entrepreneur and content creator. He has authored 33 books. You heard me right, 33 books, and given 4 TEDx talks. He joins me today to discuss his work on your game philosophy and the role discipline, confidence, and personal initiative play in personal growth. So if you're ready to show up and show out, turn up the volume and stay tuned. And if you're new to the show or a returning visitor, let's make this official and hit that subscribe button now. Welcome, Dre.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Dr. Mo. Thank you for having me on. How are you?
I am well. Happy New Year. It's just a pleasure. Been looking forward to this interview.
Me too.
So I read, it's hard to believe looking at you now, but I read you were a nerdy kid. I was as well.
Yeah.
You didn't play basketball until you were 14 years old, yet you were able to walk on and play ball at a D3 school and ended up a professional player for 9 years. First, wow, just wow. That's quite amazing. And now you're a full-time entrepreneur. I want to know, Dre, how has your experience as an athlete helped you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Great question. So first of all, thank you for the great introduction. As far as the athlete to entrepreneur thing, there are a lot of parallels between what is required of an athlete and what's required of an entrepreneur. And I kind of stumbled into those parallels because when I was playing ball, one of the first things I started doing, because I started playing in 2005. So this was early days of what we now call social media. We weren't even using that phrase yet, but I got on what is now social media through YouTube, and I was putting basketball videos out. So I started to build a little audience at that time. Probably around 2009, 2010, the players, they started asking questions about my mindset because they saw I was putting videos out every day by this point, and they knew a little bit about my background, what you just shared. Didn't start playing until 14, 1 year high school ball, walked on at D3, which is anybody who's in the sports world, Dr. Mo, that's not actually very impressive. But I mean, you made it sound like it was impressive, but it's not in the sports world. So the athletes, they understood like that's kind of crazy for him to go pro after that kind of background. So they just asked questions about discipline and confidence. So how do you get the confidence to perform when it matters, or the mental toughness to keep trying despite the fact that your resume did not reflect someone who's going to go pro? Or how do you get started doing any of this stuff? Because also not only playing ball, but also by this point, I was kind of known on the internet. And now around 2010, being known on the internet was starting to become a career aspiration. It wasn't just a random thing. So I started talking about discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative as it related to basketball. And what happened is people who didn't play basketball started hearing those messages, and they would reach out to me and say, Dre, the stuff you're talking about, I know you made it for the ball player, but that applies to everybody. So that's what gave me basically the light bulb moment that when I get out of basketball, because Mo, the thing is, I always knew I wanted to do more than just basketball. I didn't want to go from playing to coaching and training. I wanted to get out of basketball after basketball. So when these people started telling me that these mindset pieces applied outside of sports, I said, that's what I'm going to do. When I get done with playing, I'm going to expand my audience to people who have never picked up a ball in their lives, and I'm going to serve them as well as the athletes, because they still going to need mindset. So that was my idea about halfway through my playing career. 5 years before I stopped playing, I already knew that's what I was going to do.
Sweet. So you were thinking ahead, which is an important part. And I'm going to go back and disagree with you. My dad coached 50 years and my ex-husband played pro ball. So I do know a lot about sports, probably a lot more than the average person. And what you did is impressive. And there are a lot of us outside of the sports world, and even within, not everybody can do that. So I appreciate your humility, but y'all, that's pretty impressive. Especially starting at 14, brother.
Yeah, well, I give myself credit for the pro thing, but my high school career, my college career weren't that amazing. Now, when I became pro, then it all kind of became a great story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at that point, it wasn't that much to it.
All right. Yeah. Well, we'll agree to disagree.
But I get it from your perspective. Everybody doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and percentage wise as well, that's one of the things I lecture on because so many young people, that's the only career they're looking at. I'm gonna be hip hop or I'm gonna
Right.
play sports. And
That's right.
percentage wise, that's highly unlikely, frankly. So
Mm-hmm.
I love what you've done, what you did and what you've done. So
Well, appreciate it.
today you've authored 33 books and given multiple TEDx talks, and his talks are great, y'all. We'll drop some links in the show notes. Just really, really inspiring, and you give great strategies and tips within those. But what I want to know is, you talked about the parallels between sports and your entrepreneurial journey. What were
Mhm.
some of the challenges of being an author and speaker that sports did not prepare you for? And how did you overcome those challenges?
Excellent question. Nobody's ever asked me that, and I've done a lot of interviews. So one of the biggest things that I tell athletes all the time, and I tell entrepreneurs this as well, because people like that connection, like athlete to entrepreneur, and they
Mhm.
think it's just 100% parallel. It's not 100%. One of the things about being an entrepreneur that you don't realize when you're an athlete is that as an athlete, everything is set up for you. All you
Mhm.
had to do is show up and do the thing, play baseball, play basketball. No, you don't have to sell the tickets. You don't have to make sure the lights work. You don't have to make sure that the referees are there. You don't have to clean the uniforms.
Right.
All you got to do is show up and play. When you're an entrepreneur, if you don't sell the tickets, there won't be anybody there. And if you don't
All
clean the
right.
uniforms, ain't clean. All right. So as an entrepreneur, you're responsible for every piece of it, whether you do it yourself or you get other people to do it, but you are responsible for it getting done. So
Right.
I tell people, like, LeBron James doesn't have to worry about, do we have the right concession people working at the stand during the game tonight to sell the
Mhm.
pretzels or to make sure they walk up and down the aisle selling the cotton candy and the beer. All he got to do is show up and play ball. Whereas
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur, you're responsible for making sure that those people are there at their job. So that's one of the biggest things as an author and as an entrepreneur, is that just being good, having the talent and the skill to write or the skill to coach or the skill to give a speech is cool. But if you don't have the ability to market and sell your ability, then you'll never get the chance to actually do it, and you'll never get the recognition for it. So as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest things we have to do, and I tell entrepreneurs this all the time, is that you are a marketer, is what you
Mhm.
actually are. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, but your job is marketing X, ABC, whatever your thing is. You're a speaker, you're a podcast, you're an author,
Right.
you got courses, you coach, whatever. You have to market that stuff, because if you're not marketing it and letting people know that you have it and that it can help them, then you will never get a chance to actually do it. So that's the biggest difference between just being an athlete and being good at your craft and being an entrepreneur, where you have to be good at your craft and you have to handle the business side of it.
Right, right. And we're going to get into branding and marketing a little bit and some of the major corporations you work with. But before we
Mhm.
go there, I want to know what inspired you to start Work on Your Game University, and what are some of the key principles that you teach there?
Sure. So Work on Your Game University, that I really started calling it that probably around 2015, 16. I would love to take credit more that I made that up, but I didn't. I kind of stole it from somebody else. Somebody else had their business and they called it whatever their business
Right,
university. And
right.
a lot of people do that. So I said, oh, why not do that? I'll just call mine Work on Your Game University. So I stole that idea. But as far as the overall big picture of what it is about taking all the stuff that Work on Your Game is about. And our
Mhm.
4-part framework is based around mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability, and putting all of our stuff, our courses, our coaching, our training, consulting, all of that stuff under one umbrella. So that was the general concept of what Work on Your Game University is about.
Okay, got it, got it. And as we talk about marketing and branding, it seems like I want you to show me the connection between those more. You expressed it,
Sure.
but between those videos that you shared online early on in the early days of social media, kudos to you. And
Mhm.
how did those help you build your brand? Because it doesn't seem like your brand is totally around those videos. Like you could have gone two separate paths there.
Yeah, so the first piece of my brand was, and let's first get clear on what branding is. Brand is
Right.
just the idea that the space that you occupy in the mind of your consumer and the
Mhm.
space that you occupy in the mind of the audience. And that brand is ever evolving, because every time I put out a new piece of content is adding something to what that person who already knows about me already thought, right? So
Mhm.
you can change that can change in their mind based on what you put out there every single day. So that's why you have brand management, right? Because you want
Right.
to keep that idea in the mind of your consumers. The reason why Apple pays $10,000 for a billboard across the street from where I live, even though they already got all the customers, right? Because they want to keep that idea in your mind. So
Absolutely.
for me, when I was putting out the content, my brand was, I was the basketball guy who could show you how to practice, but I realized that it was a bigger picture to it than now. Dr. Mo, was because what they really noticed is that I was putting out the videos every day. What they really noticed was the consistency. And then when I started talking about that stuff, what they really noticed was my ability to explain it and break it down, which is really my superpower. That's really my best skill. It wasn't my ability to dribble, shoot, and dunk, even though I was good enough at it to make it pro. Is my ability to explain the how and why of it. That's my thing, because even today, as I talk to mostly entrepreneurs, nobody in my university now is a pro basketball player. It's my ability to break down and explain to them not only the what, but the why of it. And that's really the main thing that people want to come to me for, on top of the fact that they like my delivery and my style, and that there's no fluff and I cut out the nonsense. But it's my ability to break stuff down and explain it. So that's really my brand. That's always been my brand to my audience. And I couldn't have explained that in 2010, but I can explain it now. And when I talk to people about what they call it is unique ability. And your unique ability is the thing that is really 100% you, that is agnostic to whatever specifically you're doing. Because the same thing I was doing when I was teaching basketball players, here's how you do the Kobe Bryant move, is the same thing I can do with an entrepreneur here today when I'm explaining to them, here's how you put together a sales funnel for your book. It's the same unique ability. I'm just applying it to different things because the unique ability travels with me. It has nothing to do with where I'm working or what I'm doing or who I'm talking to. That's my brand. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And we all have our unique abilities. It's just identifying and tapping into them. And kudos on that unique use of the word agnostic, by the way. I'm a word person. So I love that. They kind of come like, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we go from that, you understand your gifts, you're passionate about it, which is two different things. And you've got discipline and consistency. And you are working with some of the biggest organizations, corporations in the world, or you have like Nike, Gatorade, and Coca-Cola. Can you share for our entrepreneurs, and I know from my demographics, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, whether they're working full time and it's a side gig, or they are totally committed to doing their own thing. Can you share some tips on marketing with them, like the videos that you did, some other tips that they might use to rise above the noise? Because that's the issue for me and everybody else. Is everybody's a podcaster, everybody's an author, everybody's a life coach, everybody's a writer, everybody's a writer. It's not, it's millions. Everybody's trying to do it, especially since 2020, when people had more time to think about what they really want to be doing. So, but I digress. Can you share some tips to rise above the noise?
Sure. So we could do a whole 3 hours just on this question alone. So what I will say is, first of all, let's get clear on what marketing is. Marketing is about the relationship and the ongoing conversation you're having with your audience. And that includes the people who have already given you money. So you have a customer for 10 years, you still need to market to those people. Right. Because just because they gave you money last year does not mean they'll give you money this year. And also people who just heard about you 10 minutes ago. So there are people listening to this who never heard of me before we start this conversation, right? So I'm marketing myself to them just by them listening to what I'm saying. So marketing is just the ongoing conversation that's taking place. Again, excuse me, I reference Apple has a billboard. They got all these customers and billions of dollars. Why are they still paying money to do billboards? Because they're continuing to market. And that's something I tell my audience, that you may not have Apple's or Nike's or Google's resources, but there are some things that they do that you should copy. All right, Google and Nike and Apple spend $1 million a day on marketing. Now, again,
McDonald's,
McDonald's as well, Amazon, right? You may not have their budgets, but you should be marketing every day the same way that they do. And the good news about social media is that you can do it and it doesn't cost you money; it just costs you sweat. We call it sweat equity, right? To market to your audience. So the thing is, sales and marketing go together, and many people get these two confused. They conflate them. Marketing is about the relationship and the ongoing conversation, and the marketing sets up the selling. So when your marketing is done well, you're setting up your sales to go smoothly. So what I tell people, especially when you're selling something that's more high ticket, a bigger investment, that your marketing is what is setting up the selling. So if your selling is a struggle or is a challenge, or you find that you're grinding through your sales, it's probably because your marketing is not on point. So when your marketing is good, you're going to be bringing in prospects who they already know they want it. They already know they're interested, and you already know that they're qualified. So selling it is relatively easy because your marketing is bringing in the right type of people and is filtering out the wrong type of people. And that's how you set yourself up to make money, because selling is where you make the money, right? And that's
Right.
where you get the exchange. I'll give you this, you give me that. They give you money, you give them the product or the service. So when it comes to the marketing, online, there are 3 ways to market. You can do content, which most of us know about. We're doing that right now. There's collaboration. We're also doing that because some of my people are going to find out about you. Some of your people are going to find out about me. That's collaboration. And then there's advertising, where you can spend money to get attention from other people. And most businesses they're doing their thing, they're usually doing a combination of all 3. They collaborate with others, they make content for free, and they pay to get their stuff in front of other people. So when it comes to marketing, the biggest thing every entrepreneur needs to understand, whether you're a side hustler or you're all in full time, is that marketing is an ongoing job that never ends. All right. So as soon as you start a business, you are a marketer for life. As long as you have that business, you are a marketer. You can never stop marketing. That doesn't mean that you personally have to do it. But even if you pass it off to someone else, or you hire a consultant or agency to do it for you, you should be watching the marketing, because the marketing is the money. And my first mentor in business said to me, Dre, the last thing you ever offload in your business is the money, and the marketing is the money. So you should always be watching the money, whether that's the money going out or how the money is coming in. So as a marketer, this is an ongoing lifetime job. And if you're going to pay attention to any one thing in your business, pay attention to the money, and the marketing is the money. And the last thing I'll say here to answer this question is that when it comes to the marketing, your ability to market and understand a market, or figure out a market, and be able to communicate with an audience in such a way that they know that you have what they need and it'll help them, and here's what they have to do to get it, i.e. leading to the sale. Your ability to do that is transferable. See, if you're a really good marketer, you can not only sell your stuff, you can sell other people's stuff, and their other people's stuff and other people's stuff. You will always have an opportunity in business if you know how to market and create opportunities to sell, because that's a universal skill that the challenge that I notice with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they don't have it. Right. The good news is they can get it. They can go get help from somebody. Right. Right. It's a learnable skill, but a lot of entrepreneurs they are artists, but they're not entrepreneurs. There's a difference. Artist is a person who's good at doing a thing. Like I said, the athlete and the entrepreneur. An athlete doesn't have to know how to sell anything. All they got to do is come to the games, they get paid. An entrepreneur has to be able to do it, and you got to be able to sell it. At least at first, when you're by yourself. And again, you can eventually branch out and expand. But that ability to market will always, if you always have that ability, you'll always be able to make money. Let's put it that way.
I agree. Well said. That was a master class right there, a mini master class in the importance of being strategic about what you're doing, and that it's not just enough to be good at it if nobody knows you're out there. And I didn't have this question in advance, but as you were talking, I thought about, I've had a number of people, these are things I speak about as well, but I've had a number of people just be very resistant to the idea that they need to constantly be talking about themselves or their product, especially online. You know, they don't want to keep sharing posts and keep talking about themselves. They call it tooting their own horn. Would you speak a little bit about that? You did address it, but a little bit more about overcoming that fear that I think they're more worried about their relatives and friends than they are about attracting clients. But can you talk a little bit about more about how important it is to repeat your message and to make sure that you're reaching new people?
Yeah, so Dr. Mo, you gave me like 5 different things there that I could talk about.
I know, but you can handle
it. Yeah. So I'm trying to remember all 5. So number 1, you better toot your own horn. Or if you're running a business, you better toot your own horn, because ain't nobody else gonna blow it. So you better be tooting your own horn and letting people know who you are, what you're about, and what you bring to the marketplace. That is literally your responsibility as a business, any business. And your business could be a entity like Nike or Amazon. It's not one person, or it could be you as a solopreneur. Like when people say work on your game, they're talking about me. So I'm frontlining for my business, the same way that Dr. Mo, you frontline for your business. So you have to be letting people know that you're there and that you have something for them. Secondly, when it comes to your story, understand that, yes, we all individually, we know our own stories, and we probably get bored telling the story the 3rd time that we tell it, because we know it already. We lived it already. We saw it. We thought about it a million times before we said it. So we think other people get tired of it. Here's the thing that you have to understand. Right? People are getting inundated with messages and content and advertisements and text messages and notifications and emails all day, every day. They don't even remember your story, let alone are they tired of hearing it. So you have to keep telling people your story over and over and over again, because let's say your story has 10 pieces to it. The first time they hear it, they might remember 1 piece. The second time they might remember pieces 2 and 3. The fifth time they might remember part number 4. The eighth time they might listen to half of part number 5. You got to tell people the same story over and over and over and over again. And if your story is good, it's just like a little kid. They like hearing the same story over and over again. Read us that same story before we go to bed. They want to hear the story if it's good. A good story, I will listen to over and over again because I like it. Right? Just like you listen to your favorite songs over and over again. I know what they're going to say. I'll still listen to it. I'll still buy a ticket to go to the concert to hear you sing the song that I already know the words to because I like it. Right? So that's the same thing when it comes to you and your story. You have to tell them over and over again. And let's also remember as entrepreneurs that, as they say, facts tell, stories sell. And the story touches people emotionally, touches people's emotional chords. And I tend to be, it's ironic coming from me because I tend to be a very logical, rational person, like extremely logical, rational. And I still understand the power of a good story because the power of a story is what moves people to action. Because if all it took was to move people to action was to tell them the logic, i.e., what your product does or your service and how it helps them. And here's the 8 modules to my course and how it's going to help you make money and do your business. That's all it took. Then there would be a line of people outside of the library instead of a line outside of the movie theater. Because movies touches people's emotions. The library has all the logic in the world. All right. Why ain't nobody there? Because people want to be touched emotionally. So the story is what gets people's emotions because the story is a narrative and people are wired. This is just a human thing. We're more wired to connect with a narrative than we are to connect with information. So if you just give people a whole bunch of information, usually it's boring, it's monotonous. For the most part, people don't retain it. But if you tell people a story, they remember a lot of a story. We just remember stories. That's just how it is. So our jobs as entrepreneurs, especially those of you who are solopreneurs and you're the front line of your business, is you want to connect your story to your information. You want to weave them together. So when I tell my story about I only played 1 year high school ball, walked on D3, then became a pro ball player, that connects to, all right, this guy had to be disciplined. He had to believe in himself and he had to be mentally tough. Like it just makes sense. Right. Yes. So that's what all of us as entrepreneurs, we want to be able to figure out. How does our story connect to what we do? And this applies to bigger companies as well. So you read, what's the Nike guy? I forget his name. The head of Nike. I forget his name. But anyway, I read his book. It's called Shoe Dog. Phil Knight. Yeah. So I read his book. And his book tells the story of how what he was going through personally, because he used to be a runner. He was a runner in college because Nike is a running company. A lot of people think of him with basketball or tennis or golf. They started as a running company, but he tells the story of how he needed something. And because of his needs, he went to solve his own problem, scratch his own itch, as we say. And that led to what Nike became. So that's a story. And when you see that Nike swoosh, that logo, you think of something in your head. You think athletes, you think exercise, you think fitness, you think performance, right? Because they tell you that story over and over and over again. And then they connect with other people who are that. Tiger Woods, Serena, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron, right? What are you thinking when you hear those names? Performance, active, winning, champions, right? So it's all part of the story. So when it comes to marketing and telling your story over and over and over again, if you look around at the most successful entrepreneurs and businesses out there, they're telling their story to you all the time. They may repackage it and tell you in a different way, or they'll tell you this piece and leave out those pieces, then tell you that piece, or they'll remix it and tell them a different way. But they're always telling their story because, first of all, it gets your attention. Secondly, we will always sit down and listen to a good story if it's good. We will not sit down and listen to information, but we will listen to a story. And that's what you retain. That's what you remember. And it also moves you to action. Emotions move people to do stuff. Information does not.
Absolutely. And I think about some of my favorite people. Of course, I love to hear as a speaker. I love to hear other speakers. And I think about Les Brown, Dr. Angelo, Tony Robbins. Yeah.
Right. You think of Les Brown. I can't even remember any of Les Brown's information. All I know is the stories.
And I know his mother's name is Mamie Brown. And for me to know a speaker's mother's name, you've told that story quite a few times. Right. But I love hearing it. I'm inspired by it every time. And it speaks to the journey, who you become today, because that makes you more relatable. I didn't wake up like this, unlike Beyonce, you know.
Exactly. Can I add one thing, Dr. Mo?
Go for it.
And the thing about stories is you think about somebody like Les Brown or Tony Robbins or any well-known person, the thing that makes them stand out, and because you said there's so many, everybody's a podcast, everybody's a course creator, everybody's a coach. The thing that makes Les Brown is that he has his story. That can't be copied. Now, what does he talk about? Maybe he talks about motivation and maybe he talks about sales. And I'm sure he has a speech about marketing and about business. But You don't remember any of that because somebody could just listen to that, copy it, and they can go put it up. What makes him is the story. All right, when somebody says Les Brown's going to be speaking at this event and you show up, it's because you want to hear the stories.
Right.
Not you want to hear the information. You get the information on Google. All right, you show up to hear the story. So that's the key thing.
That is the key thing. Love it, love it, love it. Before we close, what is one of the biggest challenges you faced in your career, and how did your mindset help you overcome it?
It's a great question, man. One of the biggest challenges, well, in sports, of course, it was just getting on in the first place, but let's go to entrepreneurship. Biggest challenge I faced as an entrepreneur was, that's a really good question. It's really just thinking about who was my target market going to be and identifying that target market and figuring out how do I market myself and position myself in such a way that I know I'm talking to my ideal people and that the ideal people know I'm talking to them. Because this actually goes even more to the question you asked previously, Dr. Mo, about when there are so many other people saying, me too. You're a coach, me too. You're a podcaster, me too. How do you separate yourself from those people? Is you have to figure out what makes you unique in the eyes of your ideal person. So first of all, figure out who your ideal person is. Secondly, find out what makes you unique to them. So how do you do this? One way is if you already have customers and clients, or even if you don't have customers or clients, if you have an audience and you have some enthusiastic members of your audience or an enthusiastic buyer who has shown you by their financial activity that they're interested in you, interview them. Excuse me. And the way you do this, all you got to do is say to them, and they'll give you the time because they like you, right? Hey, I just want to talk to some people in my audience who I know really like what I'm bringing to the table. I just want to ask you some questions because I want to find out what it is. I want to find out how I can best serve you moving forward. They will all say yes. I've done this, so I know this works. They'll say yes. And one of the key questions you want to ask them is, knowing that I'm not the only person in this space who does X or whatever your thing is. I'm not the only personal trainer in the world. I'm not the only life coach. I'm not the only business coach. I'm not the only whatever your thing is. You know, Mr. Customer, I'm not the only one, but you're my audience. What is it about me that makes me different from all your other options in the marketplace? You want to ask that question because be honest, because your customer's not stupid. They know that you ain't the only person in the world who sells what you sell. So you ask that question and they're going to answer. And if you ask about 20 people in your audience that same question, you're going to start to notice the same things coming up over and over and over again. There's going to be about 3 to 5 things that come up over and over and over again. Those are the things that you need to emphasize out of all proportion as you keep putting your material out there, because that's the thing that drew in your ideal clients. And that's the same thing that's going to draw in more people who are like them, who are giving you money, who are enthusiastic about what you're offering, and they actually do what you say, especially those of you in service-based businesses. You know, you want clients to actually do what you tell them to do, right? They don't just give you money and do nothing, right? You want follow-through clients, right? So that's all you got to do.
I love that. I love that. And use data as well, because if you've already got something going like me with the podcast for a while, I've been doing it 10 years, but I was all over the place just talking about whatever I felt like I needed to talk about that day. But once I started getting analytics, looking at the downloads and the data, it's like, okay, when I talk about this, when we talk about this, you know, we get a response. We get a lot of downloads. This is something people want to hear. So I begin to narrow my lane down to what I focus on now. And it's worked wonderfully simply because I follow the numbers, you know, like a business person. That's helped me a lot. Well, this has been fascinating. I can't imagine anyone who is listening to this or will listen to it is not inspired and just elevated in their own mindset, in their own objectives. So for those who want to connect with you and learn more about your books, podcasts, and services, how can they find you, and especially to your YouTube channel and get copies of your books?
Sure. So I do give a free copy of my book, The Third Day Away. Can I share that?
Yes. And we'll put it in the show notes.
Sure. So if people are watching on video, that's this book right here called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. This book is all about how you show up and give your best effort on the days when you least feel like it. So entrepreneurs have those days. Parents have those days. Athletes have those days. Podcasters have those days. Everybody has those days. How do you show up on those days? I'll give you this book for free, paperback version. All you got to do is cover the shipping. Just go to thirddaybook.com. The book is free. All we ask is that you take care of the shipping, and we'll ship you a physical copy of this book. As far as all the social media apps, I am super easy to find. All my profiles are public, so just go on whatever app, just type in my name, and I will be the first result you see. Instagram is just at Dre Baldwin. YouTube, just type in my name, Dre Baldwin. And Work on Your Game University is our focus right now. That's our main thing. So anything outside of social media is just workonyourgameuniversity.com. But once you follow me on any social platform, I'm sure you'll hear me talking about it all the time. So you won't miss it.
Sweet, guys. And he really does practice what he preaches. I follow him on YouTube. I've started the book, which is phenomenal. Very, very generous of you to give it away, to give away a free copy. Please support him and connect with him. And I promise you will be inspired and you'll be better at your business or whatever you're doing. I'm really, really impressed by Dre Baldwin. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You bet. You bet. I wish you continued success in all your endeavors. And to our listeners, thank you for your time and energy. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share for more like this. And please visit my website at drmoanderson.com to book me as a speaker and learn more about my books and services. Until next time, be safe and be well. Thank you.